update and reading. I see a few of you are here already. Welcome. Hi, Rainbow Love Light. Hi, Nicholas Bailey. By the way, Nicholas, I am getting to your soul realignment reading after this live, so looking forward to seeing what comes through for that. Let's take a look, see who else is here. 512 Serena. I'm excited too. Taurus full moon, yeah. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about a couple of different things. First and foremost, I wanted to go into the lunar eclipse energy itself. Then I wanted to talk about some of the astrological aspects of this full moon and how that's been kind of playing out, or how it may play out at the collective level. I also have some channeled information that's been coming through in the lead up to this full moon lunar eclipse. And I want to talk about that as well, because it's not just for me that I've been channeling that information, it's also for the collective. So I want to share that with you guys and hope that it benefits in some way, because there's some really intense messages coming through. Then I also want to pull some cards. So I've got all my notes here in front of me. I've got the chat open on my computer down below. So if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes or I'm looking at the comments. Hopefully I can keep up with the comments this time, because last time there was some lag in my ability to scroll. But yeah, so thank you so much for being here, guys. So let's go ahead and jump into the information that's coming through for this full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. So what is this? Well, it's a partial lunar eclipse. Eclipses are when the Earth casts a shadow on the moon. So we're getting that shadow aspect, and it looks reddish, which is why it's called a blood moon. Oh my gosh, if I can talk. Hey, Savannah, welcome. Good to see you here as always. Love you, girl. Then we also have this energy occurring in the sign of Taurus. So this is on the Taurus-Scorpio axis. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But first, before I get there, I want to talk about the symbolism behind a lunar eclipse. So the eclipse is the shadowing of the moon, right? So the moon is the subconscious mind, and the sun represents the conscious mind, or things that we have within our current state of awareness. So we have the shadow being cast onto the moon by the sun as the Earth sits in the middle. So we have this sort of balance between dark and light. Things that were in the subconscious mind may come to light. I'm going to talk in depth about that, because there's a lot of information that's coming through in regard to that. But the subconscious themes that I've been seeing are particularly related to the astral realms, and that's what's most intense here. So we'll go into that as well. But Taurus, let's talk a little bit about Taurus first and foremost, because this energy is predominantly in that sign, of course being opposed with Scorpio. But Taurus is concerned with security. It's concerned with comfort, with luxury, with the tangible, the physical, the practical. Taurians are ruled by Venus, so the sign of Taurus really loves to feel luxurious, to enjoy itself, to feel safe and comfortable in its home. All of those aspects are being highlighted by this moon, and since it's opposing the sun in Scorpio, this is an intense sort of deep dive into the closets, which I've been talking about in my past couple of live updates, where we're kind of digging out anything that's not needed, or that's not valuable to us anymore, or that's weighing us down, any of those shadow things that need to come to light. That's what's happening, and it's been happening, and this is really the sort of first stage of it, like actually peaking. So we've kind of gone up, and it's peaking, and it's going to go down, then it's going to go back up again, because this is the first eclipse in eclipse season. So this is just the first eclipse, and eclipses are intense. They bring intensity. They shake us to awaken us. They force us to address certain things. And so we can really jump on board with this, or we can resist it. I will talk more about that later. So this energy impacts the next 6 months, as lunar eclipses do tend to have a longer impact energetically than a regular full moon or any particular lunation. So we can expect to see these themes playing out over the next 6 months and beyond, because we're also factoring into the essence of the Scorpio-Taurus axis. We're also factoring in the other eclipses and how that will play out in conjunction to this energy. So there's a lot of energy that's going to be more long-standing here, rather than just right now over the next 2 weeks. Also, this is an exciting lunar eclipse because this is the longest partial lunar eclipse since 1440. That's a long time ago. So 1440 was the last time that a lunar eclipse lasted this long. It's supposed to last around 3 hours or so, and it's also going to be the longest lunar eclipse until 2669. So that's a long period of time from 1440 to 2669 that we're smack in the middle of that, and we're experiencing this really long, longer than normal, obviously, eclipse. So this really speaks to me of that we're being given a very clear window of time to work with this energy, and it's longer than normal. So we have to really kind of get on board consciously with what this energy is bringing to the surface, and we're going to talk in depth about what that is. So let's go ahead and get into that. So this, like I said, this is activating the Taurus-Scorpio axis. So Scorpio is all about deep diving, transformation, going into the shadows, into the astral realm, the subconscious, the spiritual, the occult, the esoteric. And Taurus is quite the opposite, where it really enjoys being in a state of the physical realm and the practical things and money and luxury and comfort and food and relaxation and things like that. Taurians can also be, or Taurus energy can also be very stubborn, very set in its ways. It likes things the way that it likes them, especially if it's built on tradition or structures or foundations that have existed for a long time in that vein. So this is kind of like that opposing energy where we have one sign who wants to go really deep and to create a lot of transformation and change and alchemize things, and one sign that's kind of like, well, I'm comfortable where I am. Why do I need to uproot that and make myself uncomfortable, even though in the long term it could spell out benefits? So there's this a little bit of like push-pull type of energy, which is normal for a full moon, but this one's just really highlighted and exaggerated because of the intensity of the lunar eclipse. So let's talk a little bit about some of the transits astrologically that are going on through this lunation. So first, this is not necessarily directly connected to this lunation, but I did want to bring it up because it's important. We have on November 17th, so just yesterday, we had the Venus retrograde pre-shadow period start to happen. So the Venus retrograde is going to be going on for, I think it's until March 3rd, March 2nd, something like that. In 2022. So this is a long retrograde period for Venus, and it's in the sign of Capricorn. And Capricorn is all about, the physical things, career, ambition, money, power, tradition, and things that are very structured, very organized, very stable. Venus is to do with love. All of these aspects are going to be kind of called into question. How do we create structure and stability around love? Those aspects are playing out at a collective level, so I did want to mention them, although they're not directly connected to this moon and this current, phase. It's still important to have that in our awareness because it is playing out. So the other reason that I mention the Venus retrograde is because the Scorpio-Taurus axis and the Venus retrograde in Capricorn kind of symbolize very similar themes. So there's these aspects that are being mirrored between these two astrological phases, where it's basically about a reevaluation of what we value. So what do we value? Do we value structures? Do we value ideas? Do we value beliefs? What are those? And do they still resonate with us? Do we value certain financial institutions? What about the things that we physically have value in our life, like things and money and our careers and things like that? So there's a lot to do with what we find valuable and how we're going to kind of reassess that over this period of the next 6 months and then going into 2022 as well. This also hinges a lot on self-worth. I've seen a lot of clients coming forward with deep internal wounds or subconscious programming around sort of the idea of lack of self-worth and how that impacts your ability to have meaningful relationships, to create abundance and experience and receive abundance in your life in terms of like financial stability and financial freedom, in terms of all sorts of things. You know, self-sabotage can often be very sort of sneaky and underhanded in its way of kind of manipulating or stopping the results in your life from coming to you. And it can usually be centered back to a wound around the self-worth, usually connected to shame. That's kind of a whole nother topic I'm not going to go into in depth here today, but that's what's being highlighted by this lunation as well. So I did want to bring that up. Now, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but before we do that, I want to talk about some of the other impactful aspects that are astrologically occurring right now. So we have the moon trine Saturn. So the moon in Taurus, you know, this is the subconscious mind wanting to feel very comfy and cozy in what it knows, the stability, the home, feeling safe and secure, all of those things. And the trine, which can bring up, you know, ease and some kind of a talent that has been hidden that can be used to your benefit and create more ease going forward. And that's connecting with Saturn, which is an Aquarius. So Saturn is the planet of rules and restrictions and hard lessons and karma. And that's an Aquarius, which is all about expansion and philosophy and technology and advancement and, you know, humanitarian efforts and things like that. It's broad-minded thinking, future-oriented thinking. So this really speaks to me of being able to connect to the subconscious need for security and comfort by acting on some kind of a talent that we have that's hidden within things that we've built a lot of structure on or around in our lives. This could be the need to actually shift into new structures, new technologies, new ways of doing things built on more humanitarian essences or aspects, aspects, and things like that. The next thing I want to talk about is Jupiter. So Jupiter is squaring the moon, or the moon is squaring Jupiter, and the Jupiter square is creating some tension, right? Squares are challenging aspects. They do incite us to take action. However, it's not usually an action that we're comfortable taking. It's usually something that we don't really want to do, or we're faced with it kind of head on, like we come up against a brick wall, or that we're experiencing challenges or conflict with the people around us, and it kind of incites us into needing to take action. So this Jupiter square to the moon is, again, this is creating an opportunity. I always like to see challenges as opportunities. If you're, you know, around for my November or like my monthly readings that I do for the horoscopes, you see that I always talk about challenges as opportunities, because they are what allow us to rise above. They are what allow us to kind of test our strengths and see where our weaknesses are. And if we come into a place where we're not able to succeed, well, then that failure is for learning, right? Because how do we learn other than through experience? And we do need to kind of learn through process of elimination, where we're eliminating what does not work so that we can understand better and apply what does work. So this Jupiter square to the moon, Jupiter's in Capricorn, Taurus is where the moon is sitting, of course. So we've got these two earth signs kind of going head to head here, opposing each other, well, squaring each other, you know, kind of saying, let's get into a little bit of a roundhouse here and see who's going to win. That's what I'm seeing it as anyway. It's like a boxing match, and they're kind of squaring off in the ring. And Capricorn's in one corner and the moon in Taurus is in the other. And Jupiter is a very strong, expansive energy. It really likes to kind of blow things up and make things bigger. And that can be a good thing, or it can be a not so good thing. It really just depends. But because this is a square and it's squaring the moon in Taurus, it's kind of like this intensity is going to get very big, very fast. And it's going to be very clear about what this is bringing to light for you. Again, specifically these two earth signs being about finances, career, ambition, the home, like work, and all of the daily routines and daily things that we do. Those are kind of what I associate with these earth signs, and again, centering around value and evaluation, or valuation. Okay, so next we have the moon trine Pluto. Okay, so Moon in Taurus, Trine, again, talent and ease is being brought up for us, so that kind of helps to balance out some of the square and more challenging aspects. And Pluto is in Capricorn as well. So again, we have Taurus and Capricorn kind of going head to head here, but in this essence, it's a little bit more harmonious. And Pluto is all about transformation, rebirth, rejuvenation. It is the death rebirth process. And so Pluto can kind of challenge us in that essence to kind of step into our power by addressing the areas where we're giving it away, where we are disempowering ourselves, where we are keeping ourselves small, and where we need to rebirth so that we can come out of those experiences transformed, more powerful, strengthened, evolved, etc. So this Moon trine Pluto, I really see this as a harmonious aspect, bringing a lot of opportunity for transformation in a lot of the other realms that we're talking about in regard to this full moon. Next, we also have, now this one is a little bit intense, okay? So we have the moon aligning with the fixed star Algol. So Algol is known as the demon star. Okay, so this is all about destruction, death, illness, violence, unavoidable disasters, things like that. It's connected to Perseus, and it is specifically represented by Medusa's head in the constellation. So this is about, you know, conflict and things like that. Now, I don't want to freak you guys out, okay? No, like, let's not fearmonger here. Let's not let our anxieties run away with us. We are in control of how this energy plays out, and some of it's already started to play out. So we've already started to see some of this, and I want to talk about some specific examples. So the first one, which I have consciously neglected to address on my channel. You guys might have noticed that I've stayed silent on this, and that is for a reason, but I'm going to bring it up just very briefly right now. I'm not going to go too in depth into it. I'm not going to go into the psychology or the energy or whatever behind it, but I want to mention how this connects to Algol and to this eclipse season. So we had, you know, the issues with Astro World occur. For those of you who don't know, Astro World was a concert put on by Travis Scott, where there was a stampede of people, where people were literally crushed to death, suffocated, trampled, etc. So there's a lot of speculation and a lot of stuff going on around that energetically. I'm not going to get into that, like I said. However, I want to mention how this is connected to Algol, because Algol is destruction, death, illness, violence, unavoidable disasters, and it can also be about like inciting mob mentality or creating violence between people. So this is a very Algol type of energy, where Astro World, there was this incited mob mentality. We don't know if it was the music, if it was the energy, what it was, but there was a mob mentality that really took over. People were not thinking clearly, they were not in their heart centers, and things unfolded very quickly and they got out of control. So that led to 300 people being injured and 10 people dying. So this is really a good sort of example of how Algol can express itself through the collective energy. Again, being aware and conscious of these things helps us to not succumb to the energy, right? Because with consciousness comes power. With knowledge is power, you know, like the reading rainbow thing. So the more knowledge you have, the more responsibility you have, because you're accountable. And with that responsibility comes power. So that's why talking about these things doesn't necessarily have to add to the energy of it or create more fear around it. My intention is to bring this up so that we have consciousness around it, so that we no longer have the unconscious sort of aspect that could present, where we end up kind of being dragged along with that energy. So if you know what's happening, you can stand up and say no. You can consciously choose something else. You always have free will. Some other aspects that Algol can bring up are weather-related sort of catastrophes or climate, you know, things that are very unavoidable, disasters, things like that. There's a couple of specific examples I'm going to talk on. There's probably more, but these are the ones that I'm going to discuss here today. So first and foremost, there was some intense rains that happened, or some very intense storms that occurred in Egypt not too long ago. And what happened was that the intense amount of water that they're not used to there actually drove a lot of scorpions and snakes out of hiding. And they came into the cities, and they were coming into around people, and a lot of people were injured and died. So 500 were injured. 3 deaths were reported so far. There might be more at this point, I don't know. But people were being stung by scorpions, bitten by snakes, that kind of thing. It's like, this is, it's like, when you think about it and everything else that's happening in the world, it's like, what is this, the freaking apocalypse? And I'm not trying to make light of that, okay? This is not fun energy to be in. This is pretty, this is kind of dark stuff. But that being said, the apocalypse, actually translated from ancient Greek, the word apocalypse is all about enlightenment. It's about awareness. It's about consciousness. So the apocalypse is not the end. It is the end of the way things were. It doesn't mean it's the end of everything. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It's the end of the way things were, and the way things were didn't work very well, did it? It's not sustainable, we know that. We've seen the climate change starting to have physical health impacts on people. We've seen the world kind of, the economy is like crumbling. Capitalism is polluting and really damaging the people and the planet. So all of these aspects are not sustainable. And so there needs to be this big, massive change. And Spirit is stepping in. The cycles of the earth are stepping in. Light workers, star seeds, beings of who came here as volunteers are stepping in. We're here to step in to help this shift take place. So this is not the end of everything. This is a transition into the times of enlightenment. But what comes along with enlightenment? Well, the dark night of the soul. I've talked about this a fair amount on my channel. The dark night of the soul is happening collectively right now. So we're being put through like healing crises. We're collectively going through all of this upheaval because we need to kind of face what is there. We need to look it in the eye. We need to shed light on these areas that have resided within the darkness for far too long. Now, another aspect of the weather that has occurred, and this one hits close to home for me, literally, is that there has been some significant flooding in BC, where I'm from. So British Columbia, Canada, is where I live. Luckily, I live far enough away from where this is happening, actually really only about 30 minutes away from where this is starting to move into. But there was some serious flooding that occurred, a dam burst, and it took out the entire highway road. So now Vancouver is cut off from the rest of Canada by road, which has never happened before. So this is huge. Entire city was flooded out, and it's moving into like Chilliwack and Abbotsford and all of these different areas that are surrounding. So it's like deep water. And so we see again, it's like weather and storms and flooding and all of these sorts of things. And there's interesting aspects to this as well, because the floods here in BC weren't just because of the weather. There were actually sort of compound factors that play here that happened earlier in the summer. So in the summer, we had this really freak heat wave that occurred where there was record-setting heats in northern Canada. And I remember that. I was inside for most of it because it was too hot to go outside. And it was like in the 40s. This is Celsius, of course. So I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit if you're in the US, but this was very intense, and it created a lot of wildfires. And so the fires really kind of created the perfect storm for these flooding issues to occur, because there wasn't any roots within the soil to absorb the water. The ash kind of acts as like a slip for the water to move down, so it's not absorbed into the ground. So all of these aspects were kind of compounded into this. It's, there's so many different things going on here. Is it climate related? Is it human related? Well, it's both. And it's also part of the astrology, right? These aspects are in the stars, right? It's written in the stars. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to play out a certain way, but these influences do have energetic impact on what we do here, how we interact with that energy. We are not necessarily controlled by the stars, but we do have an energetic sort of interaction with them that, when we make more conscious, can help us to kind of reduce some of this impact. So those are some of the examples of how Algol can kind of bring destruction in certain ways. Like, there's definitely more examples of this as well, but I wanted to touch on specifically the one to do with like mob mentality and physical violence, and the ones to do with freak weather and, you know, natural disasters and things like that. So that's kind of most of that. Now, I also wanted to touch on the fact that the lunar nodes are activated by eclipses, and the lunar nodes are points in the sky. They're not necessarily astrological bodies themselves, but they are points in the sky related to the moon, and they're activated by this eclipse and by eclipses in general, and they really bring about karmic and fated shifts. Usually this is in the form of change. Sometimes it can be endings. And you know, what is an ending if not change, right? Because an ending, it allows for something new to come in. So there's this aspect of sort of fated changes that are occurring at a collective level and individually within our own personal lives, depending on where this is kind of falling in your chart. So you'd want to look for where the moon is landing in your chart. You would want to look for where Taurus and Scorpio are in the houses within your chart. You can go to cafeastrology.com if you don't know your chart. It's free. I'm not affiliated with them. That's just what I use when I'm looking at my own chart and things like that. And yeah, so basically there's a lot of sort of external circumstances that can bring about sort of divinely guided change or intervention. And it can feel uncomfortable in the moment because it's inciting a lot of this sort of destruction and chaos. And things feel very out of our control. But at the same time, we always have free will. We always have choice. So if we choose to interact with this energy in that way by taking it into our own hands and doing with it what is aligned and most empowering at soul level, that's when we can actually move with this energy rather than getting bowled over by it, right? Because it's like a big wave of energy coming in, and you can either try to stand up and resist it and it's going to smack you down, you're going to get turned over and it's going to be really disorienting, or you can kind of jump into it and swim with it, and going with that flow, sort of like even against it almost, or the other direction, whichever way suits you best, it can create a lot more ease in the interaction with this energy. So that's pretty much most of the astrological things I wanted to talk about, but now I also have some major themes and messages that have been coming through. So these are more so the channeled things that I've received. So leading up to this lunation, or any lunation at all, or any kind of astrological thing, I'm always paying attention to the themes and the symbols and the synchronicities that come up. And I kind of jot these down mentally, and then I make notes of them so I can present them here to you. And the themes that have been really coming up over this, you know, build up to this eclipse is, like I talked about before, financial shifts and changes. But specifically, I wanted to get a little more in depth into what that actually means. So these financial shifts and changes, I've been channeling information about something I like to term the Great Resignation. I think this is something that's actually terminology that's out there as well. It's not something that I created or you know, trademarked or anything like that. But the Great Resignation. So this is where a lot of people are realizing that their jobs are no longer aligned with them, and so they're quitting either because of the mandates that are being imposed upon them externally, or because they're realizing that this way of spending their life is not empowering, it's not joyful, it's not inspiring, it's not aligned in some way. So whatever, again, you have the internal and you have the external, right? Again, so that's connecting to those nodes, fated change. You can either incite it internally or you can be impacted by it externally. It's your choice. But there's those two aspects that are playing out. So I feel like a lot of people are kind of making the transition right now into other career fields, quitting their jobs, taking that leap of faith, going through major changes when it comes to finances and career, that kind of thing. And this is also kind of leading to a lot of shifts and changes in the financial market. Now, we've been seeing this kind of come to pass for the last couple years, ever since the pandemic hit. So there's been some pretty significant economic shifts and changes that have occurred because of all of the collective stuff that's happening. But I feel like this is actually going to become even more exaggerated, even more exacerbated, where there's going to be really sort of prolific market highs and really sort of devastating market lows. And I'm not saying this because I want to incite fear or instill any kind of, you know, worry or anxiety around this, okay? If it's not something that you're directly experiencing in your life, then don't worry about it, right? It's just, this is something that I'm seeing more at a global, at a collective level, where the market is shifting and changing. And there's an emphasis that Spirit has been bringing up for me personally, and so I wanted to share that with you guys as well, about decentralization of financial institutions. So for example, the banks are centralized by the government basically, but it's not even really the government, because the actual value of money is no longer backed by the gold standard. So where everything was once a paper that represented value somewhere else, that was taken away a while ago now. And even since then, we've transitioned into more paperless forms of transactions and money and value. So now we're not even really handling the physical aspects of the money itself or the value. We're really just seeing numbers changing hands online. And so I can personally relate to this because I went from the serving industry, where it's all cash oriented, to online, creating my online business, doing online work and sales and things like that. And so it's all through the internet. It's just numbers on a screen now. I haven't touched cash in a long time. It's why when I made my money jar back there, all I had was change that had been sitting around in my drawers, because I'm like, I haven't seen or touched cash in a long time. Now, this is kind of something that I wanted to touch on, because the financial shifts and changes that are happening within the global economy are kind of impacting how the banks and the centralized sort of units of value that hold value, or that create that financial stability and security, are beginning to kind of be shaken a little bit. And we've seen a big jump of people moving over to decentralized financial means, such as Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and things like that. So that was something I wanted to mention, because my guides have been, they kept repeating the word cryptic, 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 and crypto, crypto, crypto. So cryptic meaning like hidden coded messages and information, having to decipher something that lies below the surface that you have to bring to light. Again, this goes really hand in hand with this eclipse. And then crypto being in the word cryptic, or derived from it. It's like this decentralized form of money where it's all blockchain. So everything is people-centric rather than one specific institution that holds the power. The blockchain allows for each server, and there's hundreds and thousands of them, to have its own aspect of the transaction. So you can't defraud it. You can't manipulate that. You can't change it, because if you change it on one, you have to change it on all of them, and you can't. You don't have access to all of them. So this is more of a stable, I think, way of like the age of Aquarius evolving into this more online crypto form of currency that's built on blockchain, rather than on, the old gold standard or the old paper money or things like that we used to see in the 20th century, because we're moving now into the age of Aquarius. That's, debatable by some people, but when we're looking at the collective shifts and changes, I think these are very Aquarian themes, right? So, innovation, humanitarianism, change, advancement in technology, all of those kinds of things are very Aquarian in essence. So I wanted to bring that up, and I've left a link down below in the description box to crypto.com. So this was what I was guided to do, or to start to take part in, was on crypto.com. I initially was kind of like, well, maybe I'll go with Wealthsimple or whatever trade or something like that. And my guides were like, nope. And they directed me to crypto.com. I was guided to a referral code that gave me $25 free to start off. I haven't actually gone into the investing of my own money yet, but I'm going to, or at least I plan to. But the $25 that I got upon signing up from that referral code actually has gone up to, I think I checked it this morning, it was at 46 something dollars just in crypto.com currency. So like you can see that it does tend to rise and fall, but overall I think that we're going to see a large boom, and there already has been a large boom in cryptocurrency, but it's going to get even more so when people start to shift their money over to decentralized forms of monetary transactions and things like that. So I left the referral code link down below if you guys want to get $25 to start playing around for free with cryptocurrency. You can do that at crypto.com. Use my link. It gives you $25 free, and it also gives me $25 free. So it's a win-win situation for both of us. And then you can actually then transfer that crypto.com currency into other Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies as well if you want to. You can also link a credit card or a bank or whatever you want to do to buy more. So anyway, that's interesting. I wanted to mention that. I wanted to share that with you guys because that's what my guides have been kind of leading me towards. And I want to share that with my community here because you guys are like family to me. And I want us to be able to thrive together, to feel stable in our security financially as well as, energetically together. So that was something I wanted to mention as well. Okay, couple more things and then we'll get into the cards. So this period has been so intense in the astral realm. This has been one of the most intense astral realm times that I've experienced personally. Usually the astral realm kind of kicks up for me around like Halloween and times like that. But this lunar eclipse and leading up to it has been like astral realm intensity to the nth degree. So what do I mean by that? Well, the astral realm is where we go in the dream state. It's also just like a different dimension to us. So we can't physically see it with our eyes most of the time. I have a story about that I want to share with you guys. But we can interact with that energy because it's basically the mental realm. It's like the thought realm. And there's the lower dimensional astral and the higher dimensional astral. The lower is the third and fourth sort of bridge area. Even below that, there's sort of more darker types of thoughts that have become sort of like entities in the lower astral. The third and fourth dimensional bridge is where we go when we're sleeping at night to process our subconscious thoughts or to kind of play out certain scenarios at the mental level to rejuvenate ourselves at night. And then there's the sort of upper astral, which is more so connected to the loving or more expansive, empowered dreams and thoughts of humanity. So everything that we think and contribute energy to kind of becomes something real in the astral. And not just humanity, but other realms and beings as well. So the upper astral, fourth and fifth, is where we connect to our higher self at night. That's where we are rejuvenating ourselves at a cellular level, where we wake up feeling more energized, less fatigued. Our physical healing takes place. All of those things are really super beneficial and necessary. So dream time has been really intense leading up to this eclipse. I've noticed within my own dreams, within my partner's dreams, within clients that are coming out of the woodwork and asking me, what's going on with, I'm having all of these crazy dreams. Am I negative astral traveling? Can I get a reading? I'm like, no, wait until after the eclipse. If you still want a reading, then great, go for it. But it's most likely connected to the eclipse. So it's not necessarily, a negative karmic pattern of negative astral travel. It's the eclipse. Like the eclipse is making us have these really super intense dreams. So like really weird dreams, really vivid dreams, lots of like kind of issues within the dreams or transitioning states within the astral. So that's been something that's really, really intense. And I wanted to tell you my own particular story on this. So pay attention to the symbolism in your dreams. That's another thing I wanted to talk about because that's something I'm an advocate for and I've always been an advocate for. Ever since I got into psychology and I started learning about the mind, I was like, I love the idea of dreams because it's like a realm in which we are experiencing a form of reality that we're interacting with, and yet at the same time, it's not physically happening, but it is to us in that state, and we can control it in that state. And if we can learn to control it there, we can do the same thing here because this is kind of like a different style of dream realm. The physical realm is like a mirror of the astral, whereas the physical is, of course, physical. We have body, we have matter here, and it's a little bit slower, but it's the same sort of effect where what we think of, what we dream, what we imagine, what we contribute our energy to mentally and emotionally, it does eventually manifest. Same as in the astral, but in the astral, it's more immediate. Now, what I did want to mention was that I had an experience the other day where I was in my normal dream state, right? So I'm having a dream, la 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 la. I'm watching the dream unfold and it's nice and whatever. And then all of a sudden I'm like pulled out of the dream. And this has happened to me a couple of times before. So this is like a different layer of the astral, right? So I'm in the third and fourth doing my subconscious, cleansing for the night. And then all of a sudden I'm like jolted out of that, and I'm more so back in the body. Like I'm aware that I'm lying in my bed. I'm still asleep technically, but I'm conscious, right? I'm like lucid dreaming in that aspect. So it's like that in between stage where you're not quite awake, but you're not quite asleep either. And in that essence, I was seeing a bug. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like a giant six-legged bug. So kind of like looked like a spider, but it had the 6 legs. So it wasn't technically a spider, but it was like a giant, like big sort of greenish gray bug. And it was up on like up above on my ceiling. And I'm looking at it in the astral realm, and I'm like, ugh. And then that kind of response jolted me back into my body, because I was like, ew, gross. And then I was jolted back into my body, and I woke up, I opened my eyes, and I looked up to where it had been, and I could still see it, but it was different. I couldn't see the physical shape of it like I can see like my hands now. It was more so like I could see sort of like the shadow of it. I could see, it was like it was behind a veil, but I could still see the energetic imprint of it, and I could see where it moved. And I'm like, oh my God, it's still there. I could see it because it showed up initially in the dream, which was what triggered me to come back out of the dream into the astral, and then to see it in real life. I was like, okay, so there's something there. So basically I just took my light, directed it towards it, and was like, I don't know why you're here, but this is my sacred space. You're just gonna go this way. And I kind of guided it out to the outside where, you know, it's outside of my space. You can go exist somewhere else, you know? So I just shone light on it and directed it elsewhere, and it left. But this was just a really interesting sort of experience that I wanted to share with you guys, because this is really the type of thing that the astral realm is, right? This is what the astral realm is, and this is how we can connect to it. You know, this is where astral travel can happen. You can do this consciously, or you can do this in the dream state. There's sort of like 2 different mirrored effects of that. So yeah, it's really interesting to see into the astral with your actual physical eyes. So not everyone can do that without practice, of course. Everyone can theoretically do that, I want to mention, and I've talked about this before. I'm naturally very psychic. That's just kind of how I operate, and some people just are like that. It's based on their soul blueprint and their soul type. But everyone has access to this, right? Everyone has access to this level of awareness, seeing through the third eye, being able to access different realms or dimensions of states of awareness and consciousness. It's really built into the human system. So everyone can do it. It's just, it takes practice. It takes perception. It takes dedication. It took me a couple of years to start actually seeing, even though it's my soul type. So even, you know, it does take some time, but it can be done. So that was what I wanted to mention. And to those of my clients who are watching now, who reached out to me about the Dreamtime stuff that they were experiencing, I just want to say, you know, to pay attention to the symbolism. First and foremost, try to decode that, right? Cryptic messages coming through that need to be decoded. Write it down if it makes it easier, right? Like symbols such as a bug. What does a bug represent to me? Okay, let's hash this out together right now, because I didn't actually go into this on my own yet, but I'm being called to do it here with you. So bugs represent to me little things that we're scared of, right? They make us feel uncomfortable. They sometimes get into our space when we're not kind of consciously aware of it, and they sort of frighten us, that kind of thing. But really, they don't really cause any damage, right? Like a spider is not really going to do anything unless it bites you and it's poisonous. But even then, you know, that's pretty rare. Although that did happen to me when I was a kid or a teenager. But anyway, there's different aspects. So now that I've deciphered kind of what that symbolism of the bug means to me, I would want to look at, okay, where am I creating fear around certain things in my life that are quite small or that feel a little bit invasive or uncomfortable to me? And how can I create more ease around that through this eclipse portal, through this energy that we're utilizing right now from the astrology, from the moon, etc., to be able to sort of address that fear consciously, because it was like it was in the dream state, it was in the astral realm, and I saw it consciously. So again, it's themes of the eclipse, right? Bringing the unconscious to the conscious mind, because when it's conscious, you can actually do something about it. You can actually address it. You can understand it at a deeper level and start to amend it or clear it or just work with it to benefit in some way, shape, or form. So that was something that I wanted to talk about as well. And the last thing before I get into the cards is the last symbol that has been coming up really intensely leading up to this eclipse is the ladder symbolism. So I've been seeing ladders like crazy. So shelf ladders, bookshelf ladders, metal ladders, wood ladders, ladders everywhere. And now that I'm saying it, I'm thinking about, remember that game? If you were born in like the 80s or 90s, you will remember the game Snakes and Ladders. And it was like you climb up the ladders and you slide down the snakes, then you climb up the ladders. And it's interesting because the snakes came up in the Egypt thing that I was talking about with Al Ghul, and now we're talking about ladders. So it's like snakes and ladders. We're like playing a game. But the ladders represent ascension. You're moving up, you're going up the rungs, you're taking conscious action to climb, you are ascending. So the ladder represents to me this heightened awareness, right? Again, bringing the subconscious to the conscious, and in doing so, you're able to kind of bring yourself up these sort of levels of awareness, or into greater sort of a perspective. Because if you think about a ladder, what does it actually do? Well, it gives you access to something that you wouldn't have had access to before, whether that's a point of view, whether that's something you're trying to reach up above you, or whatever it is, specifically in terms of like book ladders, like the big sliding ladders that you see in libraries. That was the first one that came through for me, and then it kind of started getting into all sorts of different ladders. But that one represents to me reaching for higher knowledge and being able to move around at that higher level to access different esoteric information, different experiences, more knowledge, to be able to allow you to continue to kind of move up that ladder of ascension or growth or soul evolution or whatever it is. So this is a perspective shift. That's how I'm interpreting it. It's allowing us to have access to previously unreachable states of consciousness, or maybe even ambitions. When we come back to the physical aspects of Taurus and Capricorn and things like that, it's like climbing, taking action, reaching new goals, ambition, moving up the corporate ladder, moving up the job ladder, moving up the whatever, right? It's like, it's about advancement. And so whether that's spiritual or that's physical or that's both, because Scorpio Taurus, right? It's a little bit of both. It really depends on you and what you're working with and what you choose to interact with as well. So that was kind of the last thing that came up for me, and I wanted to mention it. So yeah, those ladders have been just like everywhere around me. It's like not necessarily my physical reality, but I'm seeing them everywhere, all over the place, in everything that I watch and everything that I'm looking at. It's all ladders. So this is a great opportunity for us to reach that next level, or maybe even multiple new levels, because a ladder doesn't just have one step, it has many. So this, they're also bringing my attention to the ladder, the Jacob's ladder, the spine, right? So this is kind of like the ladder of the chakras and the energy body, moving up the ladder from the root chakra to the sacral, to the solar plexus, to the heart, bridging up into the uppers, the throat, the third eye, the crown, all of those sort of climbing the ladder of consciousness at the physical or energy body level as well. So thank you, Spirit, for reminding me of that, because I didn't even write that down. So yeah, there's a lot to kind of take in here. I know that this is a lot of information I've just dumped on your plate. So kind of sift through it and see what resonates with you, or what can benefit you going forward through this eclipse season. And now I want to kind of pull some cards and get into any additional guidance that Spirit would like to bring forward at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle. I'm going to use the Moonology deck, and then I'll pull some clarifiers with the Rider-Waite. So let me just see how you guys are doing in the chat here. 144, Geo, yeah, I've been seeing a lot of 144. I mentioned that in my last live as well, and that's still coming up now as well. So that's DNA activations, ascending through different layers of consciousness, and how that impacts us energetically and physically. Ladders behind me, yeah, true. The shelf, the lamp shelves are kind of like ladders too, definitely. Yeah, okay, let me see what else. How are you guys doing through this eclipse? I haven't really had the chance to kind of look at the messages here. How are you guys doing? How are you feeling? Oh, Nicole, yeah, so many dream messages this month. Jocelyn's Galaxy, I've been dreaming of brides, the color red, and the planet Saturn. Ooh, that's interesting. You know what I want to do? Maybe not today, but if you guys are interested, I think it would be really fun to get together and have a live where we go through and like interpret dreams together, you know? So to get sort of the hang of interpreting the symbolism, because it's like a whole different language. And the subconscious mind, you know, it tries to speak to us through symbols, through emotions, through that type of language. And so we do kind of have to decode it. We have to learn to speak that language. And I've studied symbols ever since I can remember. So I really enjoy, you know, unpiecing the puzzles and kind of understanding what is this and how does this work. So I think that would be fun. But yeah, brides, so some kind of commitment perhaps. Brides are also dressed in white, so maybe it's about purity. Maybe it's about, you know, starting some new phase in your life, or wanting to have that kind of committed relationship. The color red could be connected to the root chakra. It can also be connected to love when we're looking at like a red heart or something like that. The planet Saturn is also about commitment. Saturn is, you know, karma, it's commitment, it's like hard lessons, it's really kind of putting in the work to see something come to fruition. So maybe that has something to do with that dream. So maybe we can do a live completely dedicated to that kind of thing, but that would be fun. Let's see what else you guys are talking about here. Interesting. Thank you, Johnny. May I get some insight into this weekend, please? Big things with my work. Oh, okay. So Johnny, I'm not going to be doing any of the like polls for people today, but I will, since you've so generously, you know what we'll do, Johnny? I won't direct message you, okay? So I'll direct message you because I'm not going to dedicate this time here today because we're almost at an hour to doing, you know, card pulls or energy readings for you guys. I'm going to do a whole separate one on that. So I'm going to do a live on the dream interpretation. I think that would be fun. And then I'm going to do another one like I did for the 1111 portal where we are just going into your specific energy. We're doing energy work live, that kind of thing, maybe pulling some cards too for you guys. So I will dedicate time and space for you guys for that. But today I don't have the time or the energy to do it. So I will direct message you, Johnny, and I will pull some cards for you and we'll share them there because we're in contact there. Okay, so, and thank you for that. Thank you for the super chat. Had to get up and turn the light on because I couldn't believe it. Oh, Nicholas, you saw the same thing. You watched the spider thing climb away as well, and you see into the astral very clearly. We've kind of talked about that. Nicole Davis, yes, sending strength and love. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Amy. Jasmine, it's really intense. I'm seeing it affect everyone already on the ground. People seem so stressed. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of stress in the collective right now. Yeah, so that's something that I want to, that's why I want to pull cards on just the collective energy right now, because I do want to focus on you guys, but I want to have that dedicated. So today I wanted to focus on the collective energy because there is a lot of stress. There is a lot of angst, anxiety, energy, chaos type of vibrations in the collective. And I want to help to kind of clarify around that and see what we can individually do to support humanity through this very sort of chaotic time, especially those of us who are here, because if you're here, you're at least somewhat awakened, right, to your own personal power, your soul journey, all of those things. And that means that you're here for a reason to help support the collective. You know, we don't have to shift or change the beliefs of everyone else. We don't have to help to awaken people per se. Our job is really just to hold the light. Our job is just to be the change that we want to see in the world and to support those who are struggling in what they're experiencing. So that's basically holding compassion and love for the collective. So the first card that we have here for the collective is bring love into the situation. New Moon in Aquarius, what was I just talking about? Bring love into the situation, sharing that compassion for the collective so that we can help to shift some of the collective karma that's taking place right now, some of the really intense sort of dark clouds of energy that are rising up to be cleansed, purged, brought to awareness, cleared away. All of those things need to be addressed right now, and that's why we are here, right? A lot of us are volunteers here at soul level. We came as starseeds, as wanderers, as light workers to support by loving, right? By loving ourselves, by loving each other, by loving the world. Sometimes it can feel a little hopeless, especially through these times, right? It can feel really hard. It can feel almost, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like you kind of get, starts with a D. If you guys can think of the word, let's play that game now. What's the word I'm looking for? It starts with a D, and it's like to do with hopelessness. It's like you start to feel really, I can't think of it. It'll come into my head as soon as I stop trying to think about it. But let's get a clarifier on this bring love into the situation card. Defeated, thank you. Yes, rainbow love light, thank you. Deflated, oh, that's a good one too. I didn't think of that, but it was defeated I was going for, but deflated, yeah, definitely. Desolate, oh my God, you guys, awesome. Look at all these D words we're coming up with. Despair, yeah, it's like all of these things are kind of coming to the surface right now within the collective because there's so much change, because there's so much dysfunction. Hey, there's another D word. Let's play the alliteration game. Depressed, diminished. Oh, you guys are so great. Down. Yes, exactly. Oh, you guys are fantastic. I love words. Words really have substance to me. My primary energy as a soul, my soul type is in communication, which is why I speak and teach and channel for a living. That's why I do what I do. So I love words, you know, all of those things that really allow us to communicate. Dwindle. I love that. Dwindle. I just love that we have all these symbols that we can use to communicate meaning to each other in this way by, you know, writing things down or making noises with our mouth and our voice. Like, that's so cool to me. So let's get a clarifier on bring love into the situation. Okay, we have more air energy coming out, lots more air energy. All right, so we got the new moon in Aquarius with that initial card, bring love into the situation. Then we have the Knight of Swords. So more air energy, right? Aquarius, Gemini, Libra. This is the mental realm. This is the thought space. The Knight of Swords is very fast-moving, abrupt type of energy. Sometimes it can get a little bit ahead of itself when it comes to communicating, right? So it's like he doesn't stop to try and find the right words. He doesn't try and brainstorm about, you know, what is the specific word that's going to best suit how I can communicate the meaning behind what I'm trying to express. He just goes all in. He's like, blah, and then that can kind of get him into trouble a little bit. So this is where bringing love into the situation, especially with your words and your thoughts, is so important and crucial at this time. So that's why it's also really important to be in the mature expression of this energy. So the King of Swords is here as well. He is the evolved version of the Knight, right? So he's gone from the Knight to the King. So this is where we are in our mature, grounded, practical mental faculties, where we can really look at things clearly. We can cut right to the quick. We're not looking at any of the exterior things. It's like we're trimming the fat, so to speak, so we can actually really get down to brass tacks. We can actually see what the core of the issue is, how to communicate with each other, to benefit one another, to support one another, how we can get justice, because I'm also seeing, I just almost got like an overlaid image of the Justice card on top of the Knight of Swords. So it's like there's going to be justice that is served. There's going to be things coming to light within the collective, things that might unfold really quickly, that are to do with things where maybe justice is needing to be served, where there has been injustice, that kind of thing. So being in that really mature state of consciousness and being able to look at things more objectively is super necessary at this time, because it is such an emotional eclipse. It is such an emotional time that we're going through collectively. It's really important that we stay grounded and that we look at things objectively so that we don't take them quite so personally, because people might be lashing out with their words. People might be, you know, taking action in a way that is aggressive, and they don't know why, especially the people who are, you know, they've got the veil down still. They're not seeing with the third eye, so or the heart for that matter. So they don't necessarily know why they're reacting the way that they're reacting. And so it's up to us to not become triggered or dragged in to the mud of what that person is experiencing. Our job is to stay on the outskirts. Some people go in and actually help, and that's great. There's dedicated light workers for that. But my job specifically is to stay on the outskirts and hold the light. Like, I'm holding the line. And you guys here, you're probably holding the line too. So we're all here holding the line. We're helping each other to remain objective so that we don't all get dragged in, right? It's like if there were people at the Travis Scott concert who all banded together and formed a line where nobody else could move forward, maybe that wouldn't have happened, right? So it's like, this is energetically what we're doing at a soul level. We are holding the line for humanity. It's like we are working together. We've got arm in arm, you know, brothers and sisters together as one. We're holding the line for humanity to help through these chaotic times, through the dysfunction, through the disaster, through the chaos, through the upheaval. We are here keeping consciousness and keeping love within this situation to help the advancement of humanity as a whole. Huge work, right? Next, we also have the Queen of Pentacles reversed. So this to me, again, speaks of the financial shifts and changes that are happening, and not to fear them, because things might happen really quickly. There might be some big changes that are communicated. These can also be messages as well. So you might see media, news reports on things kind of economically shifting and changing. Again, bring love into the situation by not getting into that state of fear. Try to remain objective. Try to remain in that state of trust and faith, right? Where you're not going into despair, desolation, defeat, any of those D words that we talked about before, right? So stay in the hope, stay in the healing, stay in the heart. The D versus H, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's basically, I think, what I wanted to go into today. I'm not going to pull too many more, any more cards. I think that's pretty much a perfect summary of the energy that we've been talking about through this whole live together, or if you're watching this on the replay. So yeah, that's it, guys. Holding the light, holding the line. Yeah, definitely. Kelly, you got chills? Yeah, this is powerful stuff, right? When you get chills like that, I always use that as an indication that there's some kind of profound resonance, that it's like something has struck a chord, right? So it's like when somebody else hits a chord on a harp, if you, another harp, are in the room and that resonates with your D chord, that's going to vibrate your D chord. And that's like the same thing. We are vibrationally attuned beings, and we are kind of like instruments in that essence. And so when somebody speaks, or when you hear something, or when something kind of gets that shivers going, it's because there's resonance. It's because there's some kind of vibrational likeness or truth that's held within that really kind of, again, hits home for you, or creates that vibrational awareness that resonance is there. So pay attention to you when you get shivers, guys. Pay attention to what that is. What kind of evokes that for you? Is it what somebody is saying? Is it from a place of fear? Because it can also be lower vibrational. It doesn't always have to be the higher expression, but it can be preferably in the higher, but it can be both. That kind of thing. Thank you so much for speaking up and doing this live. Oh, you're so welcome, Jasmine. Thank you. Totally grounding and such a great check-in with each other. You're amazing. Oh, you guys. I get all like awkward. I don't know how to accept compliments. Thank you guys. Thank you, Jasmine. I really appreciate that. Okay, now I'm all blushy, so I'm gonna go. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for holding the line. Thank you for supporting one another. Thank you for the super chats. So Johnny Spot, I will message you directly. Nicholas, I'm going to go ahead and do your soul realignment reading, and I'll send that out to you via email as we discussed. And yeah, happy lunar eclipse, guys. It's happening at around midnight PST, 1 a.m. PST tonight. So for those of you who are in Northern Hemisphere, that is, yeah. All right, guys, much love. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye.